Charles Munger spent much of his life studying why some people escape financial struggle while most never do. His observations led him to an uncomfortable truth that challenged the conventional wisdom taught in schools and celebrated in culture. People love to say that hard work guarantees success. It's one of those ideas that sounds noble and inspirational, but it simply isn't always true. Working hard is important, of course, Munger acknowledged, but if effort alone created success, every construction worker and every nurse pulling double shifts would be a millionaire. The uncomfortable truth that Munger revealed is that hard work, without clear thinking, often just makes you tired, not successful. Munger met countless people in the middle class who were working as hard as they possibly could, holding 2 jobs, working long hours, living under constant stress, and yet they never seemed to get ahead. It wasn't because they were lazy or undisciplined. It was because they were playing the wrong game entirely. They were focused on effort instead of direction. You can row as hard as you want, Munger would say, but if your boat is pointed the wrong way, you'll never reach the shore. The modern world has sold people a dangerous illusion, according to Munger's careful observation. That illusion is that effort automatically equals progress. Schools, companies, and society reward busy people, not necessarily smart ones. People measure success by how long they work, instead of how effectively they think. They confuse motion with meaning. Munger saw this pattern repeatedly in business and in life. People doing the same thing for decades, expecting a different result, and calling it persistence. In reality, Munger understood it was inertia. The problem isn't a lack of effort at all, it's a lack of understanding. Most people were never taught how to think rationally about money, time, or opportunity. They work hard because that's what they know. But they don't stop to ask whether what they're doing is actually leading somewhere meaningful. That's how the middle-class trap works, Munger explained. You run faster on the treadmill, but the treadmill never stops. When Munger was young, he learned a principle that shaped his entire life. Working hard is just the beginning. The real question that matters is far more important. Are you working on the right thing? Munger demonstrated that the right direction, even with moderate effort, will take you further than blind effort in the wrong direction. That's why knowledge compounds faster than labor, Munger taught. Thinking multiplies effort exponentially. If you don't understand the systems you're part of, taxes, investing, incentives, compounding, you'll end up working for people who do understand them. Hard work is honorable, Munger always said, but it's not enough by itself. You need leverage, the kind that comes from judgment, patience, and understanding. You need to know how the game is played before you spend your entire life trying to win it. The wealthy understand the system and design their lives around it, Munger observed, while the middle class works hard within the system without ever understanding it. So before you double your effort, Munger advised, pause and ask yourself a critical question. Is my energy moving me closer to freedom, or just deeper into the grind? The goal isn't to work endlessly, it's to work intelligently. The person who combines effort with direction, discipline with knowledge, and persistence with patience, that's the one who escapes the trap. Consider the story of Gustavo Ferreira, a man from São Paulo who lived this principle of confused effort. Gustavo worked in manufacturing for 20 years, putting in 60-hour weeks, coming home exhausted and saving nothing. He worked hard because hard work was all he knew. His father had worked hard. His friends all worked hard. The entire culture around him celebrated hard work as the path to success. But Gustavo was trapped on a treadmill, running faster every year but never getting ahead. His salary increased, but so did his expenses. His skills improved, but he never acquired knowledge about investing, about systems, about how wealth actually accumulates. At age 40, Gustavo felt defeated. He was tired. He had no savings. He had no assets. He had nothing to show for 2 decades of exhausting work except muscle memory and regret. Then Gustavo encountered Munger's teachings about the difference between effort and direction. Munger explained that most people work hard because they lack something more important: knowledge. Munger taught that if you understand compounding, taxes, business incentives, and investment principles, you don't need to work harder than everyone else. You just need to work smarter. Gustavo's life changed the moment he stopped asking, "How hard can I work?" and started asking, "What direction should I work?" He began reading everything he could find about investing and finance. He learned about compound returns, about the power of starting early, about the difference between working for money and having money work for you. Gustavo started investing aggressively, even though his salary was modest. He understood through Munger's teachings that the direction was more important than the speed. He reduced his working hours from 60 per week to 45, giving himself time to learn and think. Paradoxically, his financial situation improved dramatically. By age 50, Gustavo had accumulated substantial wealth through intelligent investing. More importantly, he had regained his life. He wasn't exhausted anymore. He had time to think. He had options. He had freedom. Gustavo learned through direct experience what Munger taught. Hard work without direction is a trap, but hard work combined with knowledge and clear direction creates real wealth and real freedom. One of the most dangerous traps in life, Munger taught, doesn't look like a trap at all. It looks like comfort. Comfort feels good, it feels safe. But over time, Munger observed, it quietly dulls your edge, weakens your discipline, and kills your curiosity. Most people in the middle class don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they get comfortable. And comfort, once it settles in, is almost impossible to escape. When you first start working, Munger explained, you're hungry. You push harder, you save money, you take risks. But once you reach a stable point, a steady paycheck, a decent house, a bit of security, you start relaxing. You stop learning new things. You stop questioning your habits. And before long you're coasting. The danger, according to Munger, is that life doesn't stay still while you're comfortable. The world keeps moving, and comfort tricks you into thinking you can stand still without falling behind. Munger saw this countless times in his life. People get a good job and stop improving. They think the paycheck will keep coming forever. They trade growth for stability, and years later, they wonder why they feel stuck. Comfort is seductive because it hides its cost. It whispers, you deserve a break, and until that break becomes your new normal. The comfort trap also shows up in spending, Munger observed. As people earn more, they start upgrading everything: the house, the car, the vacations. What used to feel like luxury starts to feel like necessity. Every comfort becomes a new baseline, and soon they're trapped by their own lifestyle. That's how comfort quietly turns into bondage, according to Munger. The people who achieve real success never let comfort control them. They understand that growth requires discomfort. Charles Munger tried to stay curious and uncomfortable in the right ways, even in old age. Comfort feels nice in the short term, Munger taught, but it's a terrible long-term strategy. Munger had always admired people who live simply, even when they don't have to. They know that freedom comes from self-discipline, not luxury. A modest lifestyle gives you flexibility, the ability to walk away from bad jobs, bad bosses, or bad deals. You can't think clearly when you're chained to comfort. The people who stay free are the ones who keep a little edge, who choose growth over ease, according to Munger's observations. So if you find yourself feeling too comfortable, Munger advised, take it as a warning sign. Ask yourself what you've stopped learning, what you've stopped questioning. Comfort isn't evil, but it's dangerous when it becomes your goal. The real goal should be freedom, and freedom only belongs to those who can live without needing to feel comfortable all the time. Consider Mariana Santos, a woman from Rio de Janeiro who discovered Munger's wisdom about the comfort trap. Mariana had climbed the corporate ladder successfully, earning a substantial salary at a major bank. She had a beautiful apartment in an expensive neighborhood, a luxury car, designer clothes, and the respect of her colleagues. By all external measures, she was successful, but internally she felt trapped. The mortgage consumed half her salary. The car payment consumed another significant portion. Every upgrade she'd made came with obligations. She couldn't take risks. She couldn't change careers. She couldn't say no to her demanding job because her lifestyle had become a cage. One day, Mariana read Munger's insights about how comfort becomes bondage. Munger explained that each purchase you make is a lock on a chain that binds you to your current situation. Mariana realized with shocking clarity that she wasn't living well. She was imprisoned by her own choices. She made a radical decision. She sold her apartment and bought a modest place in a less fashionable neighborhood. She sold her luxury car and bought a reliable used one. She simplified her wardrobe. These changes shocked her friends and colleagues. They thought she was having a nervous breakdown. But something extraordinary happened. Mariana felt free for the first time in years. Her monthly obligations decreased dramatically. She could afford to say no to her demanding boss. She could take time to think about what she actually wanted to do. Within 2 years, she had left the bank and started a consulting business that she actually enjoyed. More importantly, she had regained her mental space. She wasn't constantly anxious about money. She wasn't constantly stressed about maintaining her image. She had what Munger called the real luxury, freedom to choose. Mariana learned through her own painful experience what Munger had taught. Comfort becomes a cage when you upgrade your life to match your income. But simplicity, chosen deliberately, becomes a key that unlocks freedom. One of the quietest destroyers of wealth, Munger taught, is something he called lifestyle inflation. It happens slowly, almost invisibly. That's what makes it so dangerous. You start making more money, and before you know it, you start spending more money. Your house gets a little bigger, your car a little newer, your dinners a little fancier. Each change feels small and justified, but together they create a treadmill that never stops. Munger saw this throughout his entire life. Smart, hard-working people earning far more than they need, yet still living paycheck to paycheck. They don't understand where the money goes, but Munger could tell you exactly where it goes. It leaks out through 1,000 small upgrades. Every time income rises, expenses rise to meet it. That's why most people never feel rich, according to Munger. No matter how much they earn, they're just running faster to stay in the same place. The problem with lifestyle inflation, Munger explained, isn't just money, it's mindset. It turns satisfaction into a moving target. What once felt like abundance starts to feel normal, and normal demands constant expansion. You buy a better car, but soon it's just a car. You buy a bigger house, and in a few years it feels too small. The more you have, the more you want. The harder it becomes to ever feel content. People tell themselves they deserve these things, Munger observed. They call it a reward for hard work. But the truth, Munger insisted, is that they're rewarding themselves by giving away their future. Every unnecessary purchase is a trade, a piece of long-term freedom exchanged for short-term pleasure. Most people don't even realize they've made the trade until decades later, when they're tired of working but can't afford to stop. Munger and Warren Buffett never believed in that kind of thinking. They lived far below their means their entire lives. It wasn't because they liked being cheap, Munger explained. It was because they understood compounding deeply. Every dollar not spent today can become many dollars later, Munger taught. But every dollar spent on something that loses value is a dollar that stops working for you. The middle class often thinks saving is about sacrifice. It's not, according to Munger. It's about buying time and independence. Lifestyle inflation also kills adaptability, Munger warned. The more you spend, the less freedom you have to change your life. You can't take a career risk or start a business when your expenses are designed for someone earning far more than you. Debt and obligation turn comfort into a cage. The people who live simply, on the other hand, can afford to make bold decisions, Munger observed. Simplicity creates room for opportunity. So don't let lifestyle inflation rob you of peace, Munger advised. If you're making more, that's wonderful, but let your savings grow faster than your spending. Learn to enjoy what you already have. That's when you'll find that real wealth isn't about buying more. It's about needing less. Debt is one of those things that looks harmless at first, Munger taught. It promises comfort, convenience, and opportunity. And for a while it delivers. But what most people don't realize, Munger insisted, is that debt compounds just like wealth does, only in the wrong direction. Instead of money working for you, it starts working against you. And once that cycle begins, it's very hard to escape. The middle-class debt trap is one of the most common forms of quiet slavery in modern life, according to Munger's observations. You start with a little car loan, a credit card balance, maybe a mortgage, and before you know it, debt becomes the background music of your entire existence. You're not working to build wealth anymore, Munger explained. You're working to pay interest. You're renting your future just to maintain your present. Munger had always said that compounding is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. But people forget, Munger warned, that compounding works both ways. If you owe money, the same force that could have built your fortune is now digging your hole deeper. Interest never sleeps. It doesn't care how tired you are or how good your intentions are. It grows in the dark, slowly but relentlessly. The tragedy, according to Munger, is that most people accept debt as normal. Society encourages it, Munger observed. Banks hand out easy credit. Advertisements sell dreams you can't afford. Everyone around you is doing the same thing, financing a lifestyle they can't sustain. It feels harmless because it's common. But common and smart are not the same thing, Munger insisted. When you live in debt, you lose freedom. And freedom is the most valuable thing money can buy. Debt dictates your decisions. You can't quit a bad job because the bills won't wait. You can't take a risk because failure would be catastrophic. You can't sleep peacefully because every decision carries a silent weight. Debt doesn't just take your money, Munger taught. It takes your options. It takes your peace of mind. It takes your ability to choose. Munger and Warren Buffett have always avoided unnecessary debt. Berkshire's entire philosophy is built on financial independence and patience. We've never wanted to be in a position where someone else could tell us what to do because we owed them money. That's why Munger told people, if you're going to use leverage, use it carefully and only for things that truly compound in your favor. But borrowing for consumption, that's like lighting your future on fire to stay warm for a minute. If you want to escape the debt spiral, Munger advised, you have to stop thinking like a borrower and start thinking like an owner. Own your life, own your mistakes, most importantly, own your freedom. It might take years to pay everything off, but the peace of mind that comes with being debt-free is worth far more than any possession money can buy. Remember this, Munger insisted, compounding is your friend only if you're on the right side of it. If you're not careful, the same power that builds fortunes will quietly destroy yours. Consider Felipe Alves, a man from Brasilia who fell into the debt trap and learned Munger's lessons the hard way. Felipe was earning a good salary as an engineer, but had taken on tremendous debt. A mortgage for a large house, a car loan for a luxury vehicle, credit card balances from years of upgrades. He thought he was successful because his possessions looked impressive, but in reality, he was enslaved. His entire income went to servicing debt. He couldn't save, he couldn't invest. He couldn't even think about taking a risk or changing careers. He was trapped in a golden cage, working relentlessly just to make payments. One day, Felipe experienced a moment of clarity while reading Munger's work on debt and freedom. Munger had written that debt is voluntary slavery. Felipe realized he had enslaved himself through his own choices. He made a painful but crucial decision. He sold his luxury home and moved to a modest apartment. He sold his expensive car and bought a used Toyota. He cut up his credit cards. He committed to paying off all his debt and never taking on unnecessary debt again. His friends thought he was crazy. They didn't understand how someone could voluntarily downgrade their lifestyle. But Felipe understood something they didn't. He understood that the difference between his current lifestyle and his previous one was the difference between slavery and freedom. Within 5 years, Felipe had paid off all his debt. More importantly, he had regained his life. He could wake up without anxiety. He could say no to bad projects at work. He could think clearly about what he actually wanted to do. He started a side business that eventually became more successful than his day job. He never would have had the mental space or financial flexibility to do that if he were still enslaved to debt payments. Felipe's story is Munger's teaching made real. Debt compounds against you relentlessly, but freedom, the kind that comes from being debt-free, compounds in your favor forever. One of the biggest mistakes Munger saw people make, especially in the middle class, is waiting too long to start investing. They always tell themselves they'll begin when things settle down, when the job is stable, when the kids are older, when there's more money left at the end of the month. But life never really settles down. And while they're waiting for the perfect moment, time, the most powerful ally they could ever have, keeps slipping away. The truth that Munger revealed is that wealth doesn't come from timing the market. It comes from time in the market. Compounding works slowly at first and then all at once, Munger taught. The earlier you start, the less you have to do later. A small amount of money invested consistently from a young age can outperform huge sums invested too late. The difference isn't brilliance, Munger insisted. It's patience. Time multiplies results quietly in the background while everyone else is distracted. Most people in the middle class work hard, earn a steady income, and even save a little, but they don't invest soon enough. They think saving is enough. But savings without investment is just money sitting still, slowly losing value to inflation. The goal, according to Munger, isn't just to save, it's to make your money work while you sleep. Every dollar you invest wisely becomes an employee that never takes a day off. Munger often said that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. He wasn't joking. The math is extraordinary. If you invest early and let time do the work, you can achieve financial freedom without chasing risky returns or luck. But if you delay, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to catch up. Most people never do, Munger observed. The biggest enemy of early investing, according to Munger, isn't ignorance, it's procrastination. People always think they'll start next year. They tell themselves they don't have enough to make it worthwhile. But you don't need a fortune to start, Munger insisted. You just need discipline. Even a small amount invested regularly grows into something meaningful over time. It's not about how much you start with, it's about how long you let it grow. Fear also plays a role, Munger noted. Many people avoid investing because they're afraid of losing money. But by doing nothing, they're losing far more, the lost years of compounding that can never be recovered. Risk is part of life, Munger taught. The trick is not to avoid it, but to understand it. Intelligent investing isn't gambling. It's using logic and patience to let time work for you. Every day you wait is an opportunity cost you'll never get back. Don't let the years slip away while you plan for the perfect time. The perfect time doesn't exist, Munger insisted. The best day to start investing was yesterday. The second best day is today. Consider Ana Paula Ribeiro, a young woman from Salvador who discovered this truth about early investing. Ana Paula was earning a modest salary as a teacher. Her instinct was to wait until she earned more before starting to invest. She thought she needed a large sum to make investing worthwhile, but she read Munger's teachings about the power of starting early. Munger explained that a small amount invested consistently, given enough time, grows into substantial wealth. Ana Paula started investing just 100 reals per month in simple index funds. It felt insignificant, but she understood Munger's principle. Time is more important than amount. 20 years later, Ana Paula's small monthly investments had grown to nearly 1 million reals. She had achieved significant wealth while still earning a modest teacher's salary. More importantly, she had achieved financial freedom. She could afford to work less, to take time off, to choose teaching assignments that brought her joy rather than just income. Anna Paula's story demonstrates what Munger had taught. The power of compounding is so great that even small early investments dwarf large late investments. She had started with very little because she understood that starting early was far more important than starting big. Human beings are wired to imitate, Munger taught. It's part of our nature. In some cases, imitation helps us survive. We learn by observing others, but in most cases, especially when it comes to money and success, imitation becomes a trap. Munger saw countless middle-class people fall into it without even realizing what had happened. They copied the behavior, spending, and lifestyle of those around them, assuming that if they act successful, success will follow. It never does, Munger insisted. The truth is that imitation gives comfort but not clarity, Munger explained. It feels safe to follow the crowd because it relieves you of the responsibility to think. You see your neighbor buy a new car and suddenly your old one feels outdated. You see someone post pictures of their new home online and you start browsing listings you can't afford. You see a co-worker investing in something flashy and you feel foolish for missing out. That's not independent thinking, Munger taught. That's emotional imitation. The middle class suffers most from this pattern, Munger observed, because imitation has become their culture. It's disguised as keeping up. They match the spending habits of people just slightly richer than them, and the cycle never ends. The problem is those people are also imitating someone else, Munger explained. It's a chain of financial mimicry that leads everyone into the same trap, working harder for things that don't make them freer or happier. Munger had always believed that envy and comparison are the most foolish emotions in life. Envy makes you focus on what others have instead of what actually matters. Comparison blinds you to your own reality. The only person worth comparing yourself to is who you were yesterday. If you spend your life chasing someone else's version of success, you'll never reach your own, Munger taught. When Munger and Warren Buffett were building Berkshire Hathaway, they never cared about looking rich. They cared about being rational. They didn't buy yachts or mansions or fancy toys to signal wealth. They let compounding do the signaling for them quietly. Over time, they understood that independence is the real luxury, not possessions. Once you stop imitating others, Munger explained, you can make decisions that actually fit your life instead of impressing theirs. The irony, according to Munger, is that most people imitate because they want respect. They think possessions will earn admiration. But respect doesn't come from imitation, Munger insisted. It comes from authenticity. The people who stand out in life are the ones who think clearly and live deliberately. They know what they want. They understand why they want it. They aren't distracted by noise. So before you buy, invest, or act, Munger advised, ask yourself, am I doing this because it's right for me or because someone else did it first? Imitation feels safe, but it's an illusion. True security comes from independent thought. The world doesn't reward people who follow blindly, Munger taught. It rewards those who think for themselves. Munger said often that the biggest gap in the world isn't between the rich and the poor. It's between those who keep learning and those who stop. The middle-class trap thrives on this difference. Most people get their formal education, earn their degree, start a job, and then stop learning altogether. They think education ends when school does. But that's the exact moment when real education should begin, according to Munger. Schools teach people how to follow instructions, not how to think independently, Munger explained. They prepare you to work for someone else, not to think like an owner or investor. They teach memorization, not judgment. They reward answers, not questions. That system works fine if you want to stay average, Munger noted, but it's a disaster if you want to rise above it. The truth is, the market doesn't pay for what you know, Munger taught. It pays for how well you can think. The people who escape the middle-class trap are the ones who never stop being students, Munger explained. They read constantly, they study widely, they connect ideas across fields. Munger spent his entire life collecting what he called mental models, big ideas from disciplines like psychology, economics, physics, and history. Those ideas compound in your mind the same way money compounds in a bank. Every new insight adds another layer to your understanding. Eventually, that understanding turns into wisdom. The average person learns just enough to do their job and then drifts through life on autopilot, Munger observed. They let entertainment replace education. They let opinion replace thought. They scroll through headlines and call it knowledge. They don't realize that the world is changing faster than ever. If you're not learning, Munger insisted, you're falling behind. When Munger and Warren Buffett talk about worldly wisdom, they mean learning broadly, not just deeply. You don't need to know everything about one subject, Munger taught. You need to understand the key principles that govern how the world works. If you can combine ideas from different fields, you'll see patterns that others miss. That kind of thinking gives you a huge edge in business and investing and in life. You don't need a fancy education to think clearly, Munger insisted. He'd met people with advanced degrees who couldn't reason their way out of a paper bag. And he'd met people with no formal education who understood human nature better than any professor. What matters isn't where you learn, Munger taught, but how often you do. Curiosity is the best teacher in the world, so don't wait for anyone to teach you. Pick up a book, listen to great minds, observe the world, think for yourself, learn every day, not because someone demands it, but because it's how you grow. The moment you stop learning, Munger warned, your mind starts to decay. So does your freedom. The education gap isn't about access, Munger emphasized. It's about attitude. Those who keep learning stay ahead. Those who stop become prisoners of what they already know. Most people misunderstand risk completely, Munger taught. They think risk means danger, something to fear and avoid at all costs. But the truth is, risk isn't the enemy. Ignorance is. Risk is simply what happens when you don't know what you're doing. Once you understand what you're dealing with, risk becomes manageable. If you want to build wealth or freedom, you can't avoid risk. You have to learn how to handle it intelligently. The middle class often plays it too safe in the wrong areas and too reckless in others, Munger observed. They're afraid to invest in assets that grow, but they have no problem taking on debt that destroys. They fear the stock market, but they're perfectly comfortable financing a depreciating car. They think keeping money in the bank is safe, not realizing that inflation eats away at it quietly every year. Playing it safe feels secure, but over time it's the riskiest move of all, according to Munger. Munger and Warren Buffett have always believed in rational risk-taking. You don't win in life by avoiding every risk, Munger taught. You win by understanding which risks are worth taking and which aren't. The goal isn't to eliminate uncertainty. That's impossible. But to make sure that when you take a risk, you're getting a good deal for it. In investing, that means buying when the odds are in your favor. In life, it means betting on yourself when you've done the work to deserve it. Fear clouds judgment, Munger warned. People see volatility and mistake it for danger. They see opportunity and mistake it for risk. But volatility isn't risk, Munger insisted. Permanent loss is. If you buy a good business or a good investment and it temporarily goes down, that's not risk. That's fluctuation. The danger comes when you panic and sell because you don't understand what you own. The market transfers money from the impatient to the patient, Munger taught. Always has, always will. Most people also underestimate the risk of doing nothing, Munger warned. They think that by avoiding investing, they're staying safe. But doing nothing is a decision too, and often the most expensive one. Every year you keep your money idle, you're giving up the power of compounding. Every opportunity you ignore out of fear becomes a lost fortune later. The key to understanding risk, Munger insisted, is to think in probabilities, not emotions. Don't ask, will this go wrong? Ask, what are the odds it goes wrong, and can I survive if it does? If the downside won't ruin you, and the upside can change your life, that's usually a smart bet. The people who win in life aren't the ones who avoid risk, Munger taught. They're the ones who manage it wisely. So don't fear risk, Munger advised. Fear ignorance. Learn. Prepare. Take the kinds of risks that move you forward. Playing it too safe keeps you comfortable for a while, but it also keeps you trapped forever. Intelligent risk is how you grow. Blind safety is how you decay. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck in the middle-class trap, Munger explained, is because they think in days and months instead of years and decades. They chase short-term comfort, short-term profits, and short-term pleasure. They trade away the very thing that could make them free, long-term compounding. The ability to think long-term, Munger insisted, is one of the rarest forms of intelligence, and it's also one of the most profitable. The modern world trains you to think fast, Munger observed. Everything around you is built for impatience. Instant news, instant entertainment, instant gratification. But real success, the kind that lasts, is built slowly. It's the result of small, smart decisions made consistently over a long period of time. People don't fail because they're incapable, Munger taught. They fail because they can't wait. Munger and Warren Buffett built their entire philosophy on patience. They were never trying to get rich quickly. They were trying to get rich surely. Most investors look for action and excitement, Munger noted. We look for endurance. Compounding only works when you give it time to breathe. Interrupting compounding is like digging up a tree every week to see if it's growing. You'll never get results if you don't let time do its work. The middle class often makes this mistake with money, Munger observed. They save for a little while, then spend when they get bored or scared. They start investing, then sell when prices drop. They never stay the course long enough for compounding to reward them. The same pattern shows up in careers and relationships, Munger taught. People jump from one thing to another, never realizing that greatness comes from commitment over time. Thinking long-term doesn't mean ignoring the present, Munger explained. It means making choices today that your future self will thank you for. One of Munger's favorite sayings is that the big money is not in the buying and selling, but in the waiting. That applies far beyond investing. The big rewards in life come from consistency, discipline, and patience, from staying with good habits long enough for them to bear fruit. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years and overestimate what they can achieve in 1. That's why they burn out instead of compound, Munger explained. If you want to escape the middle-class trap, you have to extend your time horizon. Stop looking for quick wins. Start thinking like an investor, not a gambler. Play the long game in everything: learning, relationships, health, and money. The future always belongs to the patient, Munger taught. Time is your ally if you respect it, but your enemy if you waste it. People often misunderstand frugality, Munger taught. They think it means being cheap or denying yourself good things. But real frugality isn't about deprivation. It's about discipline. It's about understanding the value of independence and knowing that every dollar you don't waste is a brick in the foundation of your freedom. Munger spent his entire life watching people who earn well but live poorly because they spend everything they make. They chase appearances instead of security. They believe the purpose of money is to display it, not to protect it. That's the middle-class trap in its purest form, Munger explained. Trading long-term stability for short-term comfort, frugality is how you escape that trap. When Munger and Warren Buffett were building Berkshire Hathaway, they lived simply, not because they had to, but because it made sense. Simplicity reduces friction, Munger taught. It keeps your mind clear and your priorities straight. Munger didn't need a mansion to think clearly. He needed quiet time, good books, and honest work. The world tells you that success means more. More stuff, more complexity, more noise. But most of the truly successful people Munger knew live with less. Less clutter, less debt, less nonsense. Simplicity gives you leverage, Munger explained. The fewer things you depend on, the fewer things can go wrong. Complexity is expensive, not just in money, but in attention, Munger warned. Every unnecessary possession takes a little piece of your focus. Every new obligation consumes time you'll never get back. A simple life lets you put your energy where it matters, into thinking, learning, and doing meaningful work. Frugality also teaches humility, Munger observed. It reminds you that money is a tool, not a trophy. When you spend less than you earn, you're not just saving money, you're buying options. You're giving yourself the freedom to walk away from bad situations, to take opportunities others can't afford, to say no when everyone else has to say yes. That's real wealth, Munger insisted. Munger never met a person who went broke by living below their means. But he'd met thousands who went broke trying to look rich. The world is full of people driving cars they don't own, bought with money they don't have to impress people they don't even like. It's madness, Munger said, and it's avoidable. You don't need to outspend anyone. You just need to outthink them. Frugality and simplicity aren't signs of weakness, Munger taught. They're signs of strength. They give you control in a world that's constantly trying to control you. They make you resilient when others are fragile. They create a kind of quiet happiness that no amount of spending can buy. So live simply, not cheaply, Munger advised. Spend thoughtfully, not emotionally. Remember that the goal isn't to own more, it's to need less, because the less you need, the freer you become. Most people think wealth is about money, Munger taught. They measure it by numbers in a bank account or the size of their house. But real wealth is much broader than that. Real wealth is independence, the ability to live life on your own terms. It's control over your time, your choices, and your mind. Money is just one part of it, Munger explained. The rest comes from knowledge, discipline, and time. Three forces that, when combined, create a kind of wealth that can't easily be taken away. Knowledge is where it starts, according to Munger. Without knowledge, you're flying blind. You might work hard, but you'll make decisions based on emotion instead of logic. The middle class often stays stuck because they don't keep learning after school. They depend on others to tell them what to do with their money, their careers, and their time. But if you study even a little about compounding, investing, human psychology, and incentives, you start seeing the world differently, Munger insisted. Knowledge multiplies your returns because it helps you avoid stupidity. Avoiding stupidity over a lifetime is far more valuable than chasing brilliance. Discipline is the next ingredient, Munger taught. Knowledge is useless without the will to apply it consistently. Everyone knows they should save, invest, read, and think long-term. But very few actually do it, Munger observed. Discipline is what bridges the gap between knowing and doing. It's what keeps you steady when others panic. It's what makes you stay invested when the crowd loses faith. It's what helps you live below your means, even when you could easily afford more. Discipline isn't exciting, Munger said, but it's undefeated over time. And then there's time, the ultimate multiplier, Munger taught. Time rewards patience and punishes haste. If you combine a little knowledge with steady discipline and give it enough time, the results are extraordinary. You don't need to be a genius to build wealth, Munger insisted. You just need to avoid big mistakes and let compounding do its work. The tragedy is that most people give up too soon. They get impatient. They chase shortcuts. They interrupt the very process that could have made them free. Munger and Warren Buffett never chased fast results. We trusted time. We made decisions that would look smart decades later, not days later. That's how compounding turns small advantages into enormous ones. It's not magic, Munger explained. It's math mixed with temperament. So if you want real wealth, Munger advised, focus less on income and more on behavior. Learn constantly. Stay disciplined. Give time enough space to work for you. Real wealth isn't loud, Munger taught. It's quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It shows up in the calm confidence of someone who doesn't have to chase, doesn't have to fear, and doesn't have to rush. Wealth built this way doesn't just buy comfort. It buys peace of mind. That, in the end, is the richest kind of wealth there is. If you've been listening carefully to Munger's teachings, you've probably realized that escaping the middle-class trap isn't about luck, privilege, or secret opportunities. It's about changing the way you think. Most people stay trapped not because the system is unbeatable, but because they never learn how to play the game correctly. The rules of wealth are simple, Munger insisted, but they require patience, discipline, and independence of thought. 3 things that most people struggle to develop. The first step to escaping the trap, according to Munger, is awareness. You can't fix what you refuse to see. Most people live on autopilot, spending what they earn, copying what others do, and wondering why nothing changes. You have to stop and look at your own habits with brutal honesty. Where is your time going? Where is your money going? What ideas control your behavior? Until you face those questions, Munger warned, you'll keep walking in circles. The second step is simplicity, Munger taught. Most of life's complexity is self-inflicted. People make things harder than they need to be. More gadgets, more debt, more distractions. The real power comes from simplifying. Live below your means. Cut unnecessary expenses. Focus on learning instead of impressing. Complexity creates dependency, but simplicity creates freedom. The third step, according to Munger, is to reverse your relationship with time. Most people trade time for money. The goal is to reach the point where money and knowledge buy back your time. You do that by saving aggressively, investing wisely, and avoiding the traps that drain your future: debt, envy, and impatience. When your time belongs to you, you've truly escaped, Munger taught. Then there's the mental side, the way you think about success itself. The middle-class mindset is often built on imitation and comfort. It says, work hard, buy nice things, and you'll be happy. But real happiness doesn't come from comfort, Munger explained. It comes from progress, from learning, building, and creating something of value. You don't need to be a billionaire to live well, according to Munger. You just need to be free from anxiety, free from debt, and free from the need to impress anyone. Munger and Warren Buffett built their lives on simple rules. Avoid stupidity, live below your means, learn every day, and let compounding do the heavy lifting. You don't need to be smarter than everyone else, Munger insisted. Just more rational than most. If you can stay patient when others are rushing and humble when others are showing off, you'll do better than almost anyone over time. Escaping the middle-class trap isn't about working harder, Munger taught. It's about thinking better. The road to financial freedom is slow, but it's sure. Every wise decision compounds quietly in your favor. Every foolish one compounds against you. So start where you are. Think for yourself. Build habits that respect reality and reward patience. Remember, Munger concluded, the goal isn't to look rich. It's to be free.